everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me once again is my colleague, Alan Ohnsman, Forbes senior editor and author of the Current Climate newsletter. Alan, thanks so much for joining me.
Hi, Brittany. Good to be with you.
It is good to be with you because Tesla made some history yesterday. The company's shareholders approved Elon Musk's $1 trillion pay package. And you and I have talked about this pay package before. But aside from it being historic, unprecedented, it making Elon Musk potentially the founding member of the Trillionaires Club, he's already the richest man in the world, I want to talk about the high-level details here. Can you talk to us? What do we need to know about this plan? What are some of your takeaways?
Well, number one, it was passed overwhelmingly by shareholders, 75% approved at the moment. That's what we know. That's not the final number, but it looks like that's what it's going to be. There was not a lot of surprise that that's what was going to happen. I think the expectation was this was going to be approved. Every comp package put before shareholders up to this point has been. The big takeaway objectively is, aside from the exorbitance of this stock award, and it is unprecedented, it's an incredible gamble. Because it's not simply expanding the business that Tesla currently has, it's literally pivoting into a new business. And Musk made this very clear yesterday after the results came out. For about an hour, he continued to take questions from retail investors and talked a lot about robots, humanoid robots, a lot, all the things they're going to do. So the company that has set the standard for electric vehicles, and it has been the world's leader in EV sales up until last year, suddenly is making a really big pivot into an entirely new business line. The story I did on it this week is that this is a bet. It's essentially magical thinking. Lightning struck a couple of times for Elon Musk in the past, both at Tesla and SpaceX, in terms of the success those companies have had. This is a bet by shareholders that he can do it again, that he can, for at least a third time, have an even bigger success with Tesla and grow it in ways that are quite extraordinary over the next decade, to earn the full value of that $1 trillion stock award that he would get.
Two advisory firms recommended that shareholders don't approve this pay plan, and Elon Musk called them corporate terrorists. The Pope had criticisms of this pay plan. Even a shareholder you talked to had criticisms. He said something to the effect of, I don't really like this direction where Tesla's going. And you call this in your piece, as you said, the case for magical thinking. So Elon Musk, after shareholders say approve this pay plan, what did he say next? I mean, what was the direction of the future of Tesla that he has outlined?
Elon's greatest talent, bar none, is not as an engineer as an entrepreneur. He has lots of ideas, but it's his ability to really get investors excited about future ideas. And he is relentless over, the past nearly 20 years now of observing him. His ability to keep pushing a future topic that gets people very excited. That was certainly the case with electric vehicles, with solar power, with batteries, and more recently with autonomous vehicles. In the case of SpaceX, he created it, he said, to colonize, the solar system. What he talked about immediately, again, was this pivot into humanoid robotics. I guess think about it as guilt-free slavery, essentially, that everyone's going to want to have, he believes, their own personal humanoid robot. He talked about how these are going to be used for healthcare, that they'll be the best surgeons. They'll help with crime watching criminals and be used by law enforcement for crime. I mean, it's kind of out there, basically, because number one, Tesla has sold exactly 0 humanoid robots as of today. Right now, it's a publicity stunt. He claims these will cost about $20,000 to build and believes that billions will eventually be sold. It's just deeply questionable because Tesla, frankly, has not been a robotics company, despite what he says. They've been a car company and a battery company. So already we see this hard sell for this new future that is AI powered, It is principally going to be robotaxis and humanoid robots. One of the votes that came up, separate from his comp, was a vote on whether or not Tesla will invest directly in another Musk company, XAI. That was the results of that are not entirely clear yet. So there was not an announced result on that. But this would be one Musk company directly funding another, which he claims will then also benefit, Tesla by doing so. So there is something about that that's incredibly self-serving. And this goes back to the big issue. Why is this controversial? The amount is exorbitant, just by any stretch. There is no precedent for something like this. But the big difference is in 2018, when shareholders approved Musk's last major comp package, which at the time seemed jaw-dropping because it was worth at least $55 billion at the time. It's turned out to be worth considerably more than that over the years. He was only running two companies. He had Tesla and he had SpaceX. Fast forward to today, and he, presumably is leading six, with those two plus XAI, X, the Boring Company, and Neuralink. And realistically, it is just not believable that one individual can be a dedicated CEO to six companies simultaneously. And this is also someone who, spends much of his day on X, tweeting about things, spending hours on podcasts with Joe Rogan and other things. So this is, someone with very divided attention. Add on top of that he's become very polarizing as a public figure, taking, extreme positions and saying offensive things online frequently to different groups and supporting right-wing politicians in Europe and in the United States. So this is kind of a dicey mix here. You're not talking just about an entrepreneur with big ideas. You're talking about an entrepreneur with big ideas who's running multiple companies, who's turning a lot of people off. I mean, there have been study after study about, Tesla sales are in decline in the United States because people don't want to be associated with Elon Musk. And then to turn around and say, we are now going to give this person the most extravagant compensation package in human history. It's definitely, a risky development for the company.
And Alan, unless you have been hiding it very well, I don't think you're making $1 trillion or have $1 trillion pay package. I certainly am not. But even with my salary, I'm sure with your salary, at any job I've ever had, from a minimum wage job on, I've been given the job requirements. Here's what you do, and then in exchange, we pay you. If you don't fulfill these tasks, you're out of here. I mean, Elon Musk, with this $1 trillion pay package, have they put any guardrails on what he needs to do? Have they said, hey, you need to be a little less controversial? Hey, you need to be a little less erratic? Hey, you need to be a little less of an absentee CEO? I mean, what does that look like?
In answer to your question, yes and no. On the first part, yes, there are very specific requirements that have to be fulfilled over the next decade. One of them, and I'll start with the absolute easiest one, is that by 2035, Tesla needs to have sold cumulatively 20 million vehicles. That's an incredibly low bar. There was a time not so long ago where Elon claimed Tesla was going to be selling 20 million vehicles a year. That has been watered down remarkably. So getting to 20 million cumulative sales by 2035 is not going to be difficult. The company's already, their cumulative sales are in excess of about 8 million right now. So essentially over the next decade, that's like, 1 point something million a year. That's not a particularly challenging target. So that's a little silly. He has to sell 1 million of his bots. And this is where it gets very curious, because in the language laid out by the board, they didn't specify Optimus robots or humanoid robots. It just says 1 million bots. Maybe they begin to claim that the cars themselves are the bots. So that one's kind of a funny one. They need to have 1 million active subscribers to Tesla FSD. it's been murky in terms of how many people actually subscribe right now. That may or may not be a difficult target depending on where things currently stand. So that one we really don't know. A big one, though, is getting the market cap up to $8.5 trillion, which would be, pretty dramatic increase. It's already one of the highest market cap companies in the world at about 1.5 trillion and change, depending on where the stock is on any given day. So those are some of the specific targets. Now, one investor that I did talk to that you mentioned, Ross Gerber, he actually found these very disappointing and a little too weak, because they're not as clear in many cases. In the last pay package in 2018, there actually were a whole series of far more specific targets, financial metrics, both sales volume, earnings margin, profitability, things like that, that were actually seemed a little tougher. So his issue was these are pretty vague, many of them, other than something specific like the market cap, for example, or cumulative EV sales. So on that ground, there are hard targets he must accomplish, a whole series of them over the next decade, to get the entirety of this massive 420 something million award of new shares. On the latter point that you ask, in terms of his behavior and how much time he's spending at the company, that's not addressed in this whatsoever. Clearly, the board has just made a decision. It's impossible to require Elon Musk to only do one or two things, and they're not even going to try. I think Robin Denham, the chair, when she was on with CNBC a week or two ago, mentioned, a lot of CEOs like to play golf. Elon likes to start companies. So that's what he does for fun, which was the way she, sort of framed it. Sure, that I guess that makes sense. But again, one might argue that actually playing golf is a good thing, because it's a form of relaxation and you get rid of stress and get out in the outdoors, and it's a way to disconnect for a time. Tesla's going through a very fraught period. There's a lot of competition across all of its business lines. In EVs, the Chinese now are far more aggressive and competitive than ever, and they're outdoing Tesla in the Chinese market and in global markets. In autonomous vehicles, Waymo is the de facto leader of that technology, not Tesla. So in the case of AI, you've got OpenAI and certainly what Google and Meta and a range of other companies are doing that are arguably ahead of where Musk's XAI is right now. So in all of his future business plans, not one of them would Tesla be defined as the clear leader of the future. That's very different than a decade or more ago in electric vehicles, where Tesla really was the de facto leader. So as we think about what's going to happen and unfold over the next decade, it's very tough to make the argument that Tesla is going to be the unchallenged dominant leader in these new technologies, and that's really at the core to his comp package, that he's going to be able to turn the company into the global leader in these new businesses.
And Elon seems to be selling this vision that doesn't exist yet, or is nowhere near existing. These crime-fighting robots, these robots saving lives in the medical field, humanoid robots, Optimus robots. I mean, and you always go back in every conversation we have to the core businesses that Tesla has, and you say, these are the money-making businesses. They should just stick to those. Selling EVs, selling batteries, charging stations. All of these robots and Elon's future for Tesla is not making money now. It's not profitable. But I know you don't have a crystal ball, but in the next 10 years, do you really see it turning such a profit where this $1 trillion pay package comes to life?
That's, you never say never, but it's very difficult to see, frankly. I don't think it's wrong for Tesla to want to do something like humanoid robots, for example. It's the centrality of it, where it now becomes the overarching focus for its future. That's risky. Tesla right now, there's nothing that some fresh new product couldn't solve. It ain't rocket science in this case. Leave that for SpaceX. In this case, the company needs a freshened product line. The Model Y and the Model 3 do incredible volume for it, and the margins on those products are good, but the sales of those products are in decline because they're old. And at heart in the auto business, and again, Elon doesn't like to think of Tesla this way, but it's a car maker. In the auto business, fresh product is the name of the game. You've got to continually keep, you continue to update your product line and come up with new designs, new products, and enter new markets. The last major new Tesla product was the Cybertruck, and it's been a remarkable flop. It has not done well. Maybe this cybercab thing that Tesla's talking about will actually come to market next year. It's a two-door model that will be sold only as an autonomous vehicle. That's a little curious because, number one, Tesla, despite what Elon says, has not mastered autonomous driving at this point. So to say our next product is going to be a two-door model, and by the way, two-door models don't tend to sell very well in the United States. It's a niche market. It's going to be a two-door model and entirely autonomous, and yet the company has not at this point proven that it's actually solved autonomy. That seems a little risky. So the failure to strengthen those core businesses, especially the EV business, that's a mistake. The other two businesses that don't get as much attention but are really solid are Tesla's battery business, which was a real bright spot in third quarter earnings. It was way up. Demand for batteries, especially energy storage batteries, whether it's for residential storage or utilities or corporate storage or data centers, it's a booming market. And Tesla has a huge lead in this space. So really leaning into that would be a smart thing to do. They are expanding the battery business, and he talked about that a bit, but that really was not his big focus. And then the other would be charging services. Tesla operates the world's largest EV charging network. That's a good business because now they charge not only their customers, but every other EV owner can use the Tesla network with an adapter. Well, that's just good money for Tesla. So it's a way to really bring in more revenue from existing infrastructure. So Tesla already has all of these features that should make it a really profitable, compelling company. The problems on the auto business would be they haven't been investing in new product aggressively, and others are in that space, and there's more competition. In the United States, we don't see the Chinese EV product, for example, but around the world they sure do. It's across Europe, it's in Australia, it's in Asia, and Tesla's ability to compete with that is definitely declining. So that's a problem, and that's a real weakness. It almost seems that Musk has grown a little bored with the car business and wants to do things that have this science fiction futuristic appeal, and he sort of shifted his attention to that. But again, Tesla sells absolutely no humanoid robots today. He said they're going into mass production next year at its Fremont plant in California. Okay, that's a good way to utilize a lot of excess capacity because right now Tesla has installed plant capacity to produce between 2 and 3 million EVs a year, and it's doing nothing close to that at the moment. So it has available factory capacity. I mean, that's one way to use your existing capacity, I guess. But the market for humanoid robots is a complete question mark. We don't know what that's going to be.
I was going to ask because based on how you were laying it out, it seems like Elon Musk is getting a little bored with those core businesses, but they're the real moneymakers, right? And they have these solutions at their fingertips. When Elon Musk, after he got his pay package approved, did he talk about those core businesses at all and his vision for the future? And if I'm a shareholder, I mean, robotics and humanoid robots and them being crime fighters is interesting, and sure, that's exciting and the future looks great, but I'm also very concerned about money. I mean, hey, I am an investor here. Did he talk about that at all?
To some extent, yes. I mean, he did talk about the Cybercab, which will be the next addition to the product line, which he says will go into production in April of 2026. And again, that's the small two-seat model that they want to sell with no steering wheel, no pedals, that it's a fully autonomous vehicle, they claim. And that will be on sale perhaps in the first half of next year. That's a really big claim, though, because as we've discussed in the past, Tesla has far from proven it's mastered autonomous driving. And to say its next product is going to be sold exclusively, give even the name Cybercab, is going to be sold exclusively as an autonomous vehicle, that seems a little risky. Many people have pointed out the obvious. Why don't you just put a steering wheel in this and sell this as an affordable, lower priced, Tesla that you could market for $25,000 to $30,000? That would be an interesting move. No answer on that. So he talked about that coming. He also talked about Cybertruck, or I'm sorry, the Semi, which we've been waiting for now since 2017 when it was first unveiled, and still has not arrived. Supposedly, Tesla's big electric semi truck finally goes into commercial production next year. He says it'll, haul loads 500 miles. There's a lot of question, though, about what that market looks like. I mean, the market for heavy duty trucks in the United States, for semi trucks, it's not the car business. It's at most, hundreds of thousands of vehicles a year for the entire industry, not millions. So, if Tesla does begin selling these semis, it's incremental, but it's at the margins. So maybe it's several thousand a year. It's not nothing, but it's not a game changer in the way a high volume mass market EV can be. And the other question that remains, that we don't know the answer to, is these big semi trucks have gigantic batteries, like in excess of a megawatt of electricity. Charging them is quite an undertaking because you need basically a small power plant to recharge these things. So Tesla is going to have to set up a dedicated network of charging stations that are unlike any that exist now for electric vehicles, that will be able to recharge a semi-truck battery pack in a reasonable amount of time. And to do that, you're going to need an incredible amount of electricity. So although he talked about, these great new products like Semi finally coming out, huge question marks in terms of what that do for the bottom line. Does that actually matter? Does it add anything meaningful to revenue? I would say probably not in the near term. And then he did talk about the battery business, that they are expanding. They do want to grow their energy storage business, which is a very smart thing to do. And they are trying to scale up in that. So, he certainly touched on these businesses, all of them. But truly, right after the announcement that he got his comp package, he really just wanted to talk about humanoid robots. So that's what he led with, and that was what seemed to really have him excited. And that's very much what.
I think the question now is, now what? Because you and I have talked that Tesla had a tumultuous Q1 and Q2. You said that some of the wins that they saw in Q3 were a sugar high because of the federal EV tax credits being phased out. When we're laying out all of Tesla's problems right now, perhaps Elon Musk feels incentivized with this $1 trillion pay package. What do you think he needs to address first, day one?
Well, that's an interesting question because every equity analyst anticipates the next couple of quarters are going to be bad for Tesla. Q4 EV sales across the board are down in the United States, and it's going to be a rougher quarter because of the disappearance of the federal tax credit. And Tesla has been the biggest EV seller in the United States, so it'll be impacted the most by that. The earnings are not going to look great for the next couple of quarters. Again, the battery business is a bright spot in there, but it's not nearly as large as the auto business. The auto business is like 80% of all of Tesla's revenue, if not more, and that's going to be down. So margins will be worse, revenue will be down. Profit will be down. That's going to bring gray clouds over the stock. So this bright future of robots and things sounds great, but the reality is the next few quarters are going to get grimmer. The other challenge is, Tesla sales in Europe have basically collapsed at this point. The brand is just not, he's gone a little too far in offending people in Europe for his support for right-wing politicians there. And so, they're not selling in Europe. In China, the problem's entirely different, where Tesla's just not keeping up with the local competition. Xiaomi, BYD, Xpeng, NIO, they have more compelling products at lower price with great new features. So in China, Tesla's in decline because it's not as competitive as it once was. Chinese consumers are more interested in what the locals have to offer. So you just see around the board, there's no bright spot for Tesla as an EV maker in the next few quarters. We'll see what happens next year with Cybercab, but at the moment, that doesn't look like that's going to be a major, game changer. So basically, I think we're going to see Elon do what he does. He's just going to keep selling hard and pitching hard for the future. Don't worry, ignore these near-term, bad quarters. Don't worry about it. We're going to be so huge and so gigantic in the future. Essentially, Elon his message is going to be, ignore bad financial quarters for the foreseeable future. The future is going to be bright because we're going to lead in all of these new industries. And, as someone I spoke to this week, Gautam Mukunda at Yale Business School talked about, Elon's message is very optimistic, but the only effort or the only evidence he offers that Tesla is actually the leader is that he says Tesla is the leader. And that's the reality here. You have to separate what Elon Musk says with the actual reality. It's just not the leader in these new technologies that he claims it is right now.
Well, as you reported, as you titled your latest piece on this, Elon Musk has this magical thinking. It doesn't seem to be rooted in reality when he's talking about the future of his company. But we work at a business magazine, and I don't know about you, Alan, but something that you said, that there's no bright spot for Tesla in the near future. I don't see CEOs, when their company's going through turbulent times, getting these trillion-dollar pay packages or anything remotely near there. Do you think that this sets a precedent then for other CEOs to get a little more greedy, a little more demanding when it comes to their pay and compensation?
That's a great question, and we'll have to see. The only big billionaire CEO founder who kind of comes close to Elon would probably be Mark Zuckerberg at Meta. But the view is even Zuckerberg would not sort of demand something at this scale. The optics of it are terrible. As you mentioned earlier, when you have even the Pope weighing in, that this is just too much. And, where have we come to where this is the kind of, compensation that someone is getting? I mean, if you think about it this way, $1 trillion over 10 years works out to $275 million a day, every day for 10 years. Is anyone worth that? It's hard to say. But I think objectively the answer would be no. It's difficult to see other CEOs pushing for something to quite match this. Elon is kind of, one of a kind in many ways. So the odds are this isn't necessarily going to spark a trend, but certainly when you see, that the board did something like this, maybe you will see CEOs pushing for, bigger comp for sure. That they're worth it if they say only I can deliver these kinds of results for our future. Just a couple other general thoughts. As I mentioned, Gautam Mukunda, as he pointed out, everyone keeps saying this pay package is going to make Elon the first trillionaire. He said, no, that's probably not accurate. Already, Musk's net worth on some days is already in excess of $500 billion. It's entirely likely that simply based on, share price increase in the next few years, he's going to become a trillionaire anyway, with what he already has. What this will make him is it'll be a second $1 trillion. And I think that's a useful observation to keep in mind. The other thing that has to be pointed out is, Musk argued he needed this so that he can have 25% ownership stake in the company to ensure a certain level of control. That is flat out a ridiculous thing to say, because currently at 12 to 13% ownership, or 13% ownership stake in the company, he has a fully compliant board. He already gets absolutely everything he wants. There is no, objectively, an additional 12% changes nothing other than the size of his bank account. In terms of control, he gets everything he wants as it is from the board. So it's hard to take seriously this argument that he must have this, 25% stake, or else, maybe he'll move on, which also is ridiculous because the entirety of his wealth is tied to his Tesla shares. If he were to do something and say, well, I have nothing more to do with this company, Tesla's share value would plummet and Elon's wealth would plummet. So it's mutually assured destruction either way. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's hard to see this anything other than, wow, this is an incredibly, this is a huge pay package. It's all about the money at the end of the day. There's no other justification for it.
Well, it was a good day for Elon Musk yesterday, but we will see where that goes from here and the future of Tesla. And I'm sure you and I have plenty of conversations in store. Alan, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Brittany. Good to be with you.